จุดโทษไหมโอ้โหเต็มเลยอ่ะสวัสดีนะครับเพื่อนพี่เอ้ากรรมการไปดู VAR นะครับเอาเว้ยซิตี้จะได้จุดโทษหรือเปล่าเอาโทษไหมจะได้เปล่าจุดโทษอ่ะเอาโอ้โหผมว่าโดนจุดโทษว่ะจุดโทษเรียบร้อยโรงเรียนจีนครับเพื่อนพี่เอาละครับเพื่อนโดนแล้วโดนจุดโทษไปแล้วฮาแลนด์จะเป็นคนยิงปะเนี่ยเรียบร้อยครับฮาแลนด์จะเป็นคนยิงอีกแล้วโอ้ยเย็ดเข้มึงจะอีกกี่ประตูเนี่ยเพื่อนพี่ครับใครเข้าแล้วผมฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์กดติดตามให้หน่อยนะเอาเว้ยเพื่อนพี่ฮาแลนด์มาแล้วนี่ประตูที่31แล้วนะครับถ้าเป็นประตูนี้เข้าไปอ่ะโอ้โห31ไหมเรียบร้อยเฮียจะไปเซฟยังไงล่ะครับเพื่อนพี่โอ้ฮาแลนด์นะครับยิงนำให้ซิตี้ออกนำเป็น2-0นะครับประตูที่31จากเออร์ลิงเบลฮาแลนด์นะครับอยู่เลยเรียบร้อยครับ2ประตูโอ้โห2ประตูแล้วจบเลยครับเพื่อนพี่โอ้โหมันยิงอีกแล้วอ่ะพี่ฮาแลนด์อีก3ประตูเท่านั้นนะที่จะทำลายสถิติจะเท่ากับอารันเชเลอร์ใช่ไหมครับเพราะมันต้องอีก4ประตูมันเก่งจริงเราก็ต้องยอมรับแบบว่าฮาแลนด์มันเก่งจริงใช่ไหมเพื่อนพี่โอ้ย13 นาทีผ่านไปนะครับ2-0แล้วเอาที่สบายใจเลยครับพวกพี่ๆผมแฟร์เซนอนนะอุตส่าห์จะมาแช่งสักหน่อยแต่มันแช่งไม่ขึ้นจริงๆอ่ะมันแช่งไม่ขึ้นจริงๆอ่ะมัน2-0แล้วผมว่าแม่งจบแล้วล่ะเลสเตอร์มันก็ฟอร์มไม่ดีด้วยอ่ะใช่ไหมครับพี่เลสเตอร์มันก็ฟอร์มอย่างเงี้ยแล้วมันจะมาได้ไงอ่ะโอ้โหเฮ้ยไม่ฟาวเอาเว้ยเลสเตอร์สู้หน่อยสู้เขาโอ้โห ถ้าเป็นอย่างนี้นะครับซิตี้จะตามอาร์เซนอล3 แต้มนะครับพี่ๆเพื่อนเซ็งเลยอ่ะmoving the ball around from right to left at will as again Leicester go back into their defensive shell. Grealish on the left hand side releases Bernardo Silva deep cross towards the far post. Kyle Walker's already can't quite tee it up for Riyad Mahrez. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall is there to hook it out of play. โรดี้ไปต่อ Manchester City take quickly. They're sensing blood. เนี่ยสโตนมันเล่นบิ๊กฟิลด์โคตรเล่นโคตรดีอ่ะเพื่อนๆแต่ไม่ยิงได้ด้วยที่สำคัญอ่ะchallenge whichever way you want to look at it needlessly brings down his man and presents City with a free kick opportunity in a dangerous area ไปต่ออีกแล้วครับเบนาโดเปิดไปวอลเกอร์ตบเข้าในไม่ได้เอาที่สบายใจเลยครับพวกพี่ๆซิตี้ซิตี้มาทุกทิศทุกทางอะครับตอนนี้เราไหนๆมันก็ไหนๆซิตี้ชนะแล้วเราก็ลุ้นให้ฮาแลนด์แฮตทริกไปเลยจะได้ทำลายสถิติอลันเชลเลอร์17 นาทีเนี่ยครับเลสเตอร์มีโอกาสยังไม่มีโอกาสยิงสักครั้งเลยนะครับพี่ครองบอลนี่89-11อ่ะโอกาสยิง6-0นะครับเลสเตอร์ไม่มีโอกาสยิงแล้วก็ครองบอลแค่ 11% อ่ะโอ้โหมันสู้ไม่ได้เลยอ่ะโอ้โหเย็ดแค่Leicester City by 2 goals to nil. Rodri into the feet of John Stones, and again a little bit of evidence of Leicester trying to press higher up the pitch. Jamie Vardy leading that fight. I mean that's stage 1, I suppose, for Leicester. Next job is to try and get some kind of possession as well. Well, they need to do something. เอาเว้ยโอ้โหเลสเตอร์ก็พยายามสวนแต่สวนไม่ได้ครับพี่นี่ครับตารางแบบเรียลไทม์นะซิตี้จะตามอาร์เซนอลเหลือ3 แต้มนะครับรอเจอนอนนะฟอร์มแบบนี้ได้เสียLeicester might end up being a real busting foot if they go 3 goals down this first half. I just think it could end up 6 and 7, you know. So it could be a big day, a pivotal day for the citizens. This. ครองบอลโหดจัดนะครับพี่ๆเพื่อนๆที่ครองบอล 90% บ้าไปแล้ว all the difference come the end of the campaign for Leicester as well. They don't want their goal difference to run away. They actually have the joint best goal difference at the start of play, -12 going into this one out of all the sides involved in the relegation battle. So that's an ace up their sleeve that they'll want to keep relatively intact at the very least come the end of this match. As Soyuncu brings the ball forward, releases Christensen down the left-hand side. He does dig out across towards Vardy, who tees up Dewsbury Hall. Now Maddison, left foot curling effort towards goal is blocked by Diaz and hacked clear by Kyle Walker. We've just ticked beyond the สวัสดีนะครับพี่เพื่อนๆใครเข้ามาแล้วผมฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์กดติดตามไว้หน่อย Leicester offers something as an attacking entity. Yeah, well that's it. I mean the thing is, it's 11 against 11, Tom. You know they've got good players. Maddison's had a great season. You know, if Vardy's living off his past chance, we know what he can do if you give him some decent ball. He buys himself half a yard. Tielemans is a scorer of goals. Like I said, a lot of these guys are in the team that beat City 5-2 at this venue. เอา Maddison ยิงโอ้โหไม่ได้ เด็ด
He
เท่
puts it inside net in anyway, and then the flag goes up. That's a little bit better.
นึกว่าจะได้
You're more likely to score goals if you're in the opposition half, rather than Vardy defending lower than the sort of halfway line, even lower than the centre circle. Ridiculous, you know. And you need your attacking players to keep the defenders, you know, honest and about at the halfway line. You try and compress play, at least drag the opposition into their half. They failed to do that, and honestly, it is a bit like a masterclass of how not to. And now, and only now, they're 2 goals down, are they giving themselves a chance by keeping a shape? But it makes no sense.
It's too little, too late, it would seem, from Leicester, but at least a couple of opportunities towards goal. Vardy was well offside when he received that pass from James Maddison. He rounded the goalkeeper and hit the side netting anyway. He's only scored 1 Premier League goal this season, and that was back in October against Wolves. It's one of Leicester's fundamental problems, maybe, that they weren't expecting a fall-off from Jamie Vardy, who is 36 years old now, or such a significant fall-off anyway. And then the other strikers within the squad, the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho and Patson Daka, who are both on the bench this evening, have not been able to really step up to the plate.
เลสเตอร์นี่จะตกชั้นแน่นอนครับเพื่อนๆไม่รอดหรอก
He was going to tail off at some point. It's almost as if Leicester, for whatever reason, the manager, the hierarchy, they weren't expecting it.
Yes and no, because they'd bought several replacements, haven't they? You know, I just thought it's almost like Dean Smith had been away for 2 years in a vacuum somewhere. He hasn't. You know what I mean? And you go in there and you go, oh, we've got Jamie Vardy. Well, is he going well in training? Yeah, he's going well in training.
ก็สวัสดีนะครับเพื่อนๆพี่เข้ามาแล้วฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์กดติดตามให้หน่อย
That don't mean to say he can do what he did in the Premier League a few years ago, but you go in there and you think, right, if Jamie Vardy could reprise the kind of form that he once had, then we'll be all right. So you put him in ahead of Kelechi Iheanacho and Patson Daka. You know, and both of those guys have been tried recently, so maybe it was his turn anyway. But the truth about it is that all 3 of them, to some degree or another, have failed this season, you know. But if you're asking Jamie Vardy to defend in front of his back 4 midfield, you're wasting your time, because that's not, he can't run the full length of the pitch. Look at him again. Again, he's in that defensive position. It's pragmatic, this from Leicester, but it's not going to do him any good.
Cross comes into the box from Rodri for Manchester City, evades Erling Haaland and will
ไปเว้ยบล็อกเกอร์ไป
still end up falling at Daniel Everson in the Leicester goal. Those 3 Leicester strikers we were just discussing, Vardy, Iheanacho and Daka, 8 Premier League goals between them this season. Erling Haaland
พี่เพื่อนๆพี่คิดว่าซิตี้จะยิงได้
for Manchester
ไอ้เพื่อนๆพี่คิดว่าซิตี้จะยิงได้กี่ลูกอะ
Leicester struggles as Everson slips as he sends
ใช่ไหมครับ
clearance forward. It
ผมถาม
still
นะ
falls to Tielemans. Christensen, that's a poor ball from him though. To him and Dewsbury Hall, they fight to win it back. Dewsbury Hall now will drop it into the feet of
กดสัก7-8 ลูกไปซิตี้
Puts a left-footed ball down the channel, looking to release Victor Christensen. His nod down finds Vardy. Gets a touch, a rare touch in opposition territory. Dewsbury Hall flicks a ball infield, sells Ndidi a little bit short. Ndidi wasn't that strong in the challenge, and now De Bruyne can break forward for Manchester City. He releases Haaland.
พี่ฟอร์มแบบนี้คิดว่าเขาจะรอดไหม นั่นนี่ครับพี่ดูแหว่งๆเนี่ยผมเนี่ยฟอร์มดีเหลือเกินซิตี้อะครับ
I apologize.
Anyway, what a goal. What a goal. I mean, as soon as the ball's won by De Bruyne, you know,
ฟอร์มดีจริงครับพี่
but De Bruyne then just, you know, right, nothing's going to stop me. He gets moving, and Ndidi tries to get back in.
ไปอีกแล้วครับเดอะบอยไปอีกแล้ว
Inside and out. You know,
ฮาแลนด์ยิงเรียบร้อยเฮีย3-0 โอ้โห25 ทีฮาแลนด์กดไป2 ลูกอีกแล้ว เอาไงอะครับพี่ตอนเนี้ย
right foot control into left foot finish. You know, he just gives you what you want at 3-0. Vardy's saying to him, well done, kid. But he says it on the quiet there. But the game's gone. Absolutely gone, Tom.
It really has. It's, I mean, if there was a minute bit of hope at 2-0, that has completely evaporated now. hasn't it? And it's quite telling there. Jamie Vardy having a word with Erling Haaland at the kick-off there, an ironic smile on his face. I suppose he can still say to Haaland, at least for a few more weeks, that he's got a Premier League title in his back pocket. Haaland's yet to do that, although I'm sure that will come in the weeks, months and years certainly to come.
Oh yeah, he's going to win all sorts of pots and pans in the unfortunately for him, with all due respect in that.
โหดจริงๆครับฮาแลนด์ไอ้เหี้ยกดไป3-0แล้วอ่ะ ก็เห็นแรงแบบนี้ตลอดสุดท้ายก็ตก UCL นี่ก็จริงนะพี่นะจริง
And he won't stop, and there's games to go, and
จริง
like
จริง
I said, he's an absolute greyhound, and he reminds me a little bit. He's got bits and pieces of Ruud van Nistelrooy and Ian Rush about him. He's such an athlete. There's pace about him, not quite the pace of a Rush, I don't think, but
ปีนี้เขาอาจจะไม่นี่ก็ได้นะพี่ ยังเชื่อบาเยิร์นครับในถ้ำโหดอยู่
I know where he is, and then when he didn't, he's behind him, and then he's in front of him, and you think, well, how do you stop that? It's just clever stuff, and that's great from Mahrez, but just De Bruyne couldn't keep his feet there. He goes down, and then the ball
แต่ปีนี้มีฮาแลนด์นะก็ต้อง ผมว่าน่าจะโอเคแหละ
straight back to City. It's a double-edged sword at the moment for Leicester, and already, I mean,
ผมว่าน่าจะโอเคแหละ
want the final whistle to go, take 3-0 and just cut and run, because this could end up a very horrible scoreline.
But listen, they won 5-2 before, so they'll just have to go a little bit better, win 5-3, won't they? I always say, you're hung for a sheep as a lamb.
ก็ต้องลองดูพี่ครับ แต่ตอนนี้ซิตี้กดไป3-0แล้วอ่ะดูชิลแล้ว
All this try to keep it tight and be pragmatic. I just think when it does go wrong, it's spectacularly bad as Walker puts a ball in from the right hand side. My other thought about it is right.
นี่ฮาแลนด์ก็ดีพี่แต่มันก็ต้องดูไประยะยาวเนาะซิตี้เขาชอบเป็นอย่างเงี้ยมันต้องดูกันบาเยิร์นทีมกระจอกโดนไป3-0เล่นในบ้านมันกดอีก2 เม็ดนี่ใช่ว่ากันไปพี่แต่ผมก็ยังเชียร์แมนซิตี้นะที่คนจับฮาแลนด์จับทางอะไรไม่ได้เพราะมันแปลกใหม่ไงมันแต่เป็นไงผมก็ยังเชียร์ซิตี้นะเขายังเจ๋งอ่ะนี่ฮาแลนด์กดไป3-2ประตูแล้วนะครับพี่อีก2ประตูเท่านั้นนะจะเท่าเชลเลอร์แล้วอ่ะ2 ลูกเองอ่ะแล้วเหลือตั้งกี่นัดอ่ะโอ้โหยอดมนุษย์จริงๆตอนอยู่ดอร์ทมุนด์ใหม่ๆก็โหดพอไปมายิงไม่ได้โอ้
It's not worked out. He's not his day, not his team's day. And here comes City again. Ball into the box, but this time a header away. Just as well Suter got there because Haaland was hunting that up. Madison's got to beat 3 just to chop the ball back to his fullback. And that's
ต้องดูไปเรื่อยนะพี่ฝากพี่ๆเพื่อนๆด้วยนะครับใครเข้ามาแล้วผมฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์กด Subscribe ให้หน่อยนะครับพี่เพื่อนๆรบกวนหน่อยช่วยดันหน่อยนะครับพี่เชื่อผมเถอะมาดริดเจอมาดริดเหรอโอ้พี่ไม่ไว้ใจแมนซิตี้เลยพี่พลไม่ถึงฮาแลนด์
Anyway, here comes Christensen now. Dewsbury Hall puts a decent looking ball into the box, but it's blocked away by Rodri.
I'll keep the glass half full by suggesting we could still have one of the greatest comebacks in Premier League history. Doesn't look likely at this moment in time, though.
Well, here's Dewsbury Hall. The thing is, they've got good players. I really like Dewsbury Hall. He's a cracking player. Tielemans scores goals. I've often thought that indeed he's a good player. You know, there's no shortage of talent there. It's just how you set them up. You know, when you went out to play football, even in your school team, you think, oh, we're up against a school we don't normally do that well. They're a bit better than us. But that don't mean to say you all go and decide that you're going to defend and block. You know, you might end up doing that because the opposition's a bit better. At least, you know, when the ball's back with your goalkeeper, have the ambition of playing up the field and doing all that. The problem that a lot of these teams have at the moment is everybody wants to play out from the back. De Bruyne gets round his man suit and it's hooked away by Castagna at the death there, and that will just be a throw. If your team wants to play out from the back, you get to the point in a game when you realise you haven't been in the opposition half. How are you going to score? At least back in the day, in your school team against a better school, you know, your goalkeeper would boot it out over the halfway, give you a shot to nothing at least. Boy, you know, it's so difficult here watching Leicester just defend. One-way traffic. Rodri picks the ball up, sweeps it out to Grealish, left-hand side. He's got Castagna ahead of him, but he doesn't need to. Puts the ball on the inside of him. In the end, Wout Faes has done well there. Gets just a foot in. Bernardo's got the quality just to dribble into the box there, but Faes came and took the ball away from him.
สมัยลาฟาลิเวอร์พูลผมสิ
It does. We see Erling Haaland behind Alan Shearer and Andy Cole as the all-time leading scorer in a single Premier League season. He's got 32. They both got 34, although they got that in a
ใช่วันนี้เขาพักคุณโอกาสก็ได้แค่พิมพ์
season. Haaland
ต้องลองต่อเดี๋ยวอีกแค่ไม่กี่วันพี่เดี๋ยวก็รู้ว่าใครหมู่ใครจ่าใช่ไหมครับพี่เดี๋ยวก็รู้ว่าใครจะหมู่ใครจะจ่า
Grealish is going to get sent off here, I fancy. And then indeed a little bit of afters. Our referee's trying to ignore that. I don't know, we saw it. Maybe it wasn't at a good angle. I don't know if VR gets to have a chat with him. But it looked to me like they tangled and then I thought Grealish threw a punch.
I'm sure we'll find out in the next breaking player.
สองลูกเองอ่ะพี่ฮาแลนด์อ่ะ
Some instructions from VAR, but once this ball goes out, if they are going to do something about it, if there is something to be done, then I'm sure we'll find out. Grealish is in possession at the moment for a curveball as well if he ends up scoring in this passage of play.
He rolls the ball into the box. He can't quite find Riyad Mahrez, who peeled off from his right flank into sort of inside left. Ball won't go out at the minute, and that's why. Anyway, sliced out. Referee's going to come across now. He's going to have a word with Jack Grealish, I think, but he didn't see it. He does go and have a word. Maybe you're that lucky because I can't give it. I didn't see anything. I don't know what VAR can say to him, but we've not taken a second look at that because the ball's hardly been out of play. So his teammates keeping the ball in there, doing him a job. Madison, that's a beautiful cut by him. He drops a shoulder, beats two. Vardy runs ahead of him now and picks up the ball at the edge of the area, held up by John Stones though. Ball now for Kieran Dewsbury, hold just the edge of the box. Madison, can he get it out of his feet? Yes, he can. Right footed strike into the back of Bernardo Silva. Ball breaks back out now. Castagna tries to get that one working again. And Grealish comes across and it looks like he's dealt with it to some degree. I don't know if that's a corner. Looks like they're all moving back.
I think Grealish got a toe in and it hit Tielemans and went out for a goal kick, but that was better from Leicester.
เอาหน้าเด็กก็รู้บาเยิร์นนะจ๊ะบาเยิร์นที่กระจอกโดนไป 3-0 ให้มันยิง4 ลูกเฮ้ยนั่นแหละพี่เดี๋ยวมันก็รู้ยิงโอ้โห
Yeah, I think he's had a really good season. There've been question marks about his work rate, I think. You know, not about his quality. And Leicester fans, I think, were a little bit upset with him about a year ago, thinking he didn't really put it in. But I think he's changed his work.
เดี๋ยวก็รู้เดี๋ยวก็รู้
He's more willing, seemingly, to put it in.
พี่เดี๋ยวก็
You know, that's got him an England call-up, hasn't it? And I think he's played quite well for England. He certainly deserves to be playing on a world stage. So good for him. But unfortunately, his teammates don't seem to be matching the qualities. Carl Walker's chased by Christensen, who shows he's no slouch. But the ball then with Diaz, and he goes back to Ederson, who really had too much to do. Anyway, Carl Walker back on it. Looks like City are taking a breather. They've been fairly relentless, but even there at 3-0, just think, pack the ball about now and wait for the break. you know, maybe also if they do play it about a bit, they'll just drag the Leicester players out of their own half.
Yeah, that's it. The City don't need to do anything more than they've been doing, and that might allow Leicester to grow more into the
อันแรก
game.
มัน
Might
มันจะ
also
ยิงอีกสัก
create gaps when City do
ผมว่า
play
วันนี้แม่งไม่จบกว่า5ไม่ต่ำกว่า5ลูกแน่นอนเลย
on this occasion gathered by Everson, but inevitably we mentioned it every nil. It feels like the competitive edge of the game has gone, and you can see that with the players as well. City have dropped the intensity, and it is just allowing Leicester a squeak in terms of having a bit more of possession higher up the pitch.
Yep, just looking at the respective benches, Iheanacho out of the frying pan at City into the fire, perhaps. You know, he would have expected to get regular first-team football, I guess, and be the understudy to Vardy. Vardy took a long time to throttle down in his career, and Iheanacho's never fully impressed. He found himself offside way too often. I like Patson Daka, but I think it's very
Mà dân là
difficult for a young
chọn.
striker to make his name in the Premier League if he doesn't score 20 goals a season. It's like, oh, well, he's out. Ball into the box here for De Bruyne. From the left-hand side, it's the sort of outstep of his right boot. Not easy to do. And then the ball aimed at Vardy. He's taken off his toe end, and he can make no impression. And it's just City absolutely dominating. It is a bit like shots in and the occasional breakout from the opposition. And Leicester just back inside their own half. You know, I think at a certain point you have a player like Vardy or whoever your striker is, and I'd say, right, if the fullbacks are going forward, just hang in the gap. He's going to play sort of inside left today, and whenever they stride forward, if we've got an out ball, fling it that way, at least let him run at it. But because Vardy is ever moving and moving back to help his defence out, there is nobody to find, even if they do win the ball. There's no out ball, and then they're required to run the full length of the field to try and support the attack because they've all been defending. Dewsbury Hall, though, he's willing to do that, and he bursts over the halfway line. But again, no real support for him. He shrugged off the ball. Kyle Walker may have fouled him there. That's another feature as well, is that your teammates think, well, City will have it back soon. So I don't think Dewsbury Hall's going to have it for too long. So I won't go support it because I'll just be defending him in it anyway. And all of a sudden you forget to attack. When he broke forward there was only Vardy with him.
Well, that's it, and Vardy's run was covered by 2 or 3 City defenders between Dewsbury Hall and the striker, so he has to take it on himself. I think it's a soft free kick. Didn't think there was much Kyle Walker did there. Just a slight arm. Dewsbury Hall off balance, fell over. The referee gives a foul, and Leicester chance to get the ball into the box. Angle's not great for James Maddison, but he will stand it up in the area.
Yeah, and he does just that. And then the ball back with fast on the half volley. And he flies that shot over the top. Not his finest moment, but it was something. Leaning back, always difficult to get that right, really. I think they've got good players. You know,
อืม
I think
เป็น
Leicester
อย่าง
have
นี้
got enough quality, certainly to stay up, but we can say that about virtually all the teams. I was talking about Southampton today. I thought I was saying if they got back-to-back wins, you know, all of a sudden it would be going for them, and then they were terrible today, really. You know, I'm struggling to see them staying in the division, even though I think they've got some cracking players there.
อื
It's
ม
the same for Leicester as well. They've hit a flat spot at just the wrong time, haven't they? You know, they've lost all momentum, but yet they've got such good players at the team in the squad. You know. Anyway, whether Dean Smith can get them out of the hole they're in, I don't know. The other point, I suppose, Tom, is that you'd expect to get nothing at the Etihad anyway. So it's a shot to nothing.
โหดมากนะครับซิตี้เนี่ย
We won't expend too much energy, and they're certainly not really throwing too much at it. As Mahrez picks it up, and here now Silva to Rodri steps on the ball, but nobody's come to challenge him. He runs through 1 or 2 would-be challengers. Finds Mahrez back to De Bruyne. Not a lot of pressure on the ball right now.
No, it's a bit of a half-hearted press from Leicester. They're a little bit scared. They don't know whether to stick or twist. City not really going through the gears either. Again, mentioned they don't need to go for the jugular. As you say,
เอาละครับพี่ๆเพื่อน
nothing for Leicester. Thinking about it, you almost feel like they'd be better off not appointing Dean Smith if that's what they wanted to do until next week. Have the interim managers take charge of this, get it out the way, and then it is a clean slate rather than having your new manager coming in and immediately starting on the back foot with what looks like it will be a heavy defeat.
Yep, I agree with that. Ball headed across the face now, breaks to De Bruyne, and he's gone for blood there with a right foot half volley. Hit it way too hard and into the stand. Again, Kyle Walker played all right there, good header in. Swung it in the mix, and again, so many blue shirts in the Leicester box. They've got three centre-backs today, Fass, Soyuncu, Suter. But I'm not sure that wing-backs is the way forward for them. Not that they're playing like wing-backs today. It's a back five, isn't it? With three in front of them. Madison's having to do a shift in. But City again have the ball back with Grealish, who just draws that challenge of Castagna. Comes back out with the ball, and then he drifts one over the top. That's very close, you know. Holland sticks out right leg, and if he brings that in, he's probably four. It's a good pass from Grealish.
It was. I'm just thinking, has Erling Haaland even touched the ball since he scored his second goal? Again, no real involvement in the build-up play, but when he needs to be, he inevitably pops up in the right place and provides a finish. But again, that evidence is that the City have just dropped 2 or 3 gears themselves and just going through the motions at this moment in time. I think Pep Guardiola will probably, if it stays at 3-0 going into the break, look to freshen things up pretty quickly with the Bayern Munich return match in mind, and maybe inject some fresh impetus with 1 or 2 more fringe players coming off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have gone much better, and you're so right. I mean, I'd be thinking, job done. Yeah, let's take off 1 or 2 of the key cogs, and you know, we'll still go on and win it anyway. It's not like he's got a weak bench, is it? You know, there's some great players to bring on. You know, Gundogan, absolutely brilliant. You know, Cole Palmer's still making his way, and Julian Alvarez, how many World Cups he won? Just the one. But you know what I mean. I mean, I think I'll be taking Haaland off because you can wrap him up in cotton wool, but he probably wants to keep on scoring and break that record. I mean, he could break that record today, the way he's going. I think he's had 2 touches and, you know, hit the back of the net twice, kind of thing. So he'll want to go on. There's a bit of that, and then you've got to sort of focus because it's not going to be easy against Bayern Munich, even at 3-0 up. You know, they're one of the few clubs who could turn that round. Anyway, not likely to against this City team. Rodri again pulling the strings in the middle. Ball drifts out right. Kyle Walker controls it well. Then bursts past Christensen. Buys himself a little bit of time. De Bruyne ball to the far post. Headed away. Just at the edge of the box. Then I think that's probably a foul from Laporte. He got a little bit too heavy then on Madison, who I thought was in position A to control the ball. Madison's played all right today for what it's worth, but the 3-0 down, it doesn't really count. Let's hope there's not too much added time at the end of the half.
เอาเว้ยเอาเว้ย
He's been tidy in possession when he's got it. Madison, what's going through his head really over the course of this performance in the first half. He'll feel, and rightly so, he has the ability of a lot of these City players. He wants to be playing football, but instead he's being forced to play as almost an auxiliary fullback at times, and he's barely getting a look in terms of on the ball.
ก็จบครึ่งแรกนะครับเพื่อนพี่ใกล้จบแล้ว
Soyuncu, but he's read that. Dewsbury Hall then finds a ball out to the right. Tielemans in the middle, but it's a great challenge from Riyad Mahrez. You know, they don't mind working hard for the team. They're all used to that for City. All kept in by Haaland, an incredible bit of athleticism there to control it. Took a long leg out. And now they're on the break. They've got bodies forward. Haaland's run offside. It won't go to him. But now they're trying to step over it. But Castagna's read that really well. Maybe one last hurrah then in this 45 minutes as Madison runs down one blind alley after another. And then he's chopped down by Bernardo Silva. And he gets a yellow card for that right in front of the referee. I don't know quite what he expected to get there.
Needless from Bernardo Silva, isn't it? You're 3-0 up. Madison turns nicely, chops his man down. Maybe Darren England could have kept his cards in his pocket, but as you say, it was right in front of him, and he decides it's worthy of a yellow. And you don't need to be picking up those kind of needless cards when you're in such a comfortable position.
No, not really. I mean, it's one of those. He shows a lot of skill, Madison, and you just think, oh, boo. And he did. Ball was long gone, wasn't it? I think if the ball had been anywhere near his feet, he might have got away with that, but it was long on the ball. Anyway, here they come, Castagna now for Leicester. Just trying to work it, then Dewsbury Hall. He's worked hard today. Back to Castagna. And then back to Fass. Ball chipped over the top. Too much legs on that. And Castagna's never going to get there, although he gives a thumbs up. We're into 2 minutes of added time. And thankfully we've had one of them. It's been as one-sided a half of football as you're going to see, though. And you think, oh, you know, business as usual then. Man City 3, Leicester City 0. Well, this has done a real disservice to Leicester. I just think there are many ways to get beat by Man City, but meekly surrendering possession to them and territory and sitting back in front of your own goal is not the way to take these guys on anymore. I haven't seen the stats for low blocking teams and what they do against them and all that. But when Leicester City beat them before 5-2, I bet they weren't low blocking. Anyway, that's for a moan for another day. As Grealish picks the ball up now. We didn't see the Grealish thing again with Ndidi, did we? Him flinging an arm out. Maybe if he gets sent off, that might have sort of made a bit of a game of it. But we never got to see that again.
No, the only thing you can presume is that there can't have been too much in it. If there had been a real talking point, then well, I'm sure we'd have seen 5, 6, 7 replays since then.
Well, here is Grealish, edge of the area. Not a great ball to Bernardo, but then De Bruyne picks it up. His ball into the box is headed away by Soyuncu. The referee's seen enough, and at half-time then at the Etihad it is Manchester City 3, Leicester City 0.
At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3-0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3-0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3-0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3-0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3-0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3-0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3-0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and he's 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely
มีแต่มันไม่เด้งขึ้น
Erling Haaland then scored
มัน
from
เด้
the
งไม่เด้ง
penalty
ขึ้น
spot on
มันเด้งมาแล้วแต่มันไม่เด้งให้กดเลขมันหมุนอยู่อย่างนั้นแหละ เนี่ยใช้หมดแล้วทุกอย่างทำหมดแล้วเขาทำมาจนโดนแล้วเนี่ยโดนแบนแล้วเนี่ย
At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the
แบบนี้
penalty
แหละ
spot
แต่มัน
on
ไม่เด้งขึ้น
13
ตรง
after
นี้
Wilfred Ndidi
ให้ก
was
ดว่า
adjudged
คือเล
by
ขอะไร
VAR to have handled in the area.
มันไม่เด้ง
Haaland
ขึ้นมัน
got
เด้ง
his
มัน
second
มัน
of
แจ้ง
the
เตือน
game,
มา
his
แล้วแต่พอ
32nd
กด
in
เข้า
the
ไปมัน
league
หมุ
this
น
season on 25
มัน
minutes.
ไม่ได้แล้วโดนแบนไปแล้ว
Man City
มันบอกให้รอ
3,
2-3 ชั่วโมง
At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as
เนี่ย
one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot
คืออะไรก็ไม่รู้
on
เนี่ยอันเนี้ย
13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling
ผมงง
Haaland
ว่าทำไมมัน
then
ถึงไม่
scored
เด้ง
from the
ขึ้นมา
penalty
เท่านั้น
spot
แหละ
on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League
เลข
this
อะไรอะตัวเอง
season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on
เลขอะไรอีก
13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland
เนี่ยมันเพิ่งเด้งขึ้นมาเนี่ยตัวเองดูดิ
32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish.
เนี่ยตัวเองดูดิ
Leicester
เนี่ย
0.
ดูดิ
The break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by
เนี่ย
3
มัน
goals
เพิ่ง
to
เด้ง
0.
ขึ้นมา
It's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this
ไม่
season.
แต่อันเนี้ยมัน
City
เข้า
in
ได้
front
ไหม
on
ล่ะ
5 minutes,
เนี่ยที่
lovely
เขาจะ
left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on
ไม่
13
ที่เขาจะ
after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to
ที่
have
เขาส
handled
ตรีมอยู่
in
เนี่ย
the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his
เนี่ย
32nd
ไม่
in
ได้
the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League
ไม่
this
ได้
season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this
เขาก็
season.
ทำอะไรไม่ได้
City in front on 5
เนี่ย
minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot
ก็
on
รู้แต่เขา
13
ปรับ
after
แต่งอะไร
Wilfred
ไม่ได้
Ndidi
เลยใน
was
ใน
adjudged by
ที่
VAR
เขา
to
ส
have
ตรีม
handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, a lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13 after Wilfred Ndidi was adjudged by VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. At the break, Manchester City lead Leicester City by 3 goals to 0, and it's been as one-sided a first half as you're likely to see in the Premier League this season. City in front on 5 minutes, lovely left foot volley from John Stones. Erling Haaland then scored from the penalty spot on 13
นะครับเพื่อนๆพี่ก็ครึ่งหลังนะครับใกล้จะเริ่มแล้ว
VAR to have handled in the area. Haaland got his second of the game and his 32nd in the league this season on 25 minutes with another cool finish. Man City 3, Leicester 0. And it's a very warm welcome back to our independent off-tube studio commentary of this Premier League clash at the Etihad Stadium. As you were just hearing, Manchester City cruised into a 3-0 lead.
My way.
The second period has just got underway, and both sides have made a double change at the break. City, perhaps with midweek Champions
เฮ้ย
League
จะบอกนะเอาฮาแลนด์ออกอีกแล้วอ่ะ
in mind, have brought on Manuel Akanji and Julian Alvarez to replace John Stones and Erling Haaland, so no hat-trick.
โอ้เป๊ปเพิ่งเอาฮาแลนด์ออกอีกแล้วอ่ะเซ็งว่ะเพื่อน
Actually, from that first half, have been replaced for Leicester. Kelechi Iheanacho has come on against his former club to replace Jamie Vardy up front, and Luke Thomas
งงอ่ะมันเอาฮาแลนด์ออกอ่ะ
back in place of Victor Christensen. Fresh legs, but based on what we saw in the opening 45 minutes, it's difficult to see those changes stemming the tide from the visitors' point of view. It's myself, Tom McGarry, and John Hogan talking you through this evening's coverage. John, that was probably
เอ
the
อทำไมฮาแลนด์ถึงออกอ่ะ
decided first half we've seen in the Premier League this season. Is there any way Leicester can get a foothold in this game, or do you see the status quo continuing?
I just think they'll be beaten up whichever way now. It's too late, really. And listen, Alvarez comes on and he'll be like a whip it out there, desperate to do well. He's only a World Cup winner, nothing fancy, you know. And Akanji's a good player. I don't see any weakness there. If an,
สวัสดีนะครับพี่วินเพื่อนทุกคนเข้ามาแล้วฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์กดติดตามให้หน่อยนะ
he's somebody who can't keep himself on side. Not that he's got a lot of pace about him anyway. Just don't see how it's going to work. So the answer is no. And it was a feeble first half performance, and from that they don't really deserve anything. If they do get back into it, then wow, that'd be great. But I just can't see it.
Yeah, it's very difficult to envisage Leicester even getting a goal based on what we saw in the
จริงว่ะฟุกไอ้เหี้ย
mind
ทำไมต้องเอาฮาแลนด์ออกด้วยเซ็งเลยนะเซ็งว่ะฟุกเอาอีกสักลูกก็ไม่ได้นะ3-2ประตู
now inside his own penalty area for Leicester, feeds it up to James Maddison, who tried to make things happen in that first half in the rare opportunities he got on the ball. Thomas now trying to clear his line, but Leicester are pinned in. De Bruyne pinches it back. De Bruyne low cross into the box against Souters, the man there to clear. Soyuncu then has his pocket picked inside the area by De Bruyne, just about atones, and Leicester will try this time to bring the ball clear.
ไปอีกแล้ววอลเกอร์ไปวอลเกอร์เปิดโอ้โหจะถึงอเวอเรสต์ไม่ถึงจริงยังไม่รู้จะพักส้นตีนอะไรนักหนาฮาแลนด์เนี่ยไอ้เหี้ยถ้าไม่พักนะป่านนี้มี40ลูกอะเหมือนที่ฟุกบอกอะ
Maddison in behind Iheanacho, but it's a poor first touch by the striker. He was in between Manuel Akanji and Kyle Walker, and just for a moment it looked like he was going to be bearing down on goal, but
พักอะไรส้นตีนอะไรนักหนาก็ไม่รู้นะพี่
He was never onside in that, Tom. And we mentioned about you can't keep onside. He was never onside, and so and even then his touch betrayed him, and then the next thing his ball taken away from him. So you're not going to score like that. It was a good ball, but you've got to trust that your striker is looking down the line and he keeps on, and he just fails to do that. Daka
ไปแล้วอินาโชโอ้โถตัดนึกว่าจะยิงทีมเก่าได้แล้วอินาโช
control the ball anyway. Lovely pass through though from James Maddison, who remains the bright spark.
ให้ฮาแลนด์กดสัก40ลูกก็ไม่ได้
Disappointing evening so far, but at least that was a flurry forward from the Foxes at the start of this second period. Manchester City back in possession. Merritt Laporte into the feet of Rodri and across to Akanji.
บางทีนักเตะมันก็อยากมีแบบสถิติส่วนตัวบ้างเนาะไม่ได้เป็นเกียรติประวัติของตัวเองอะคนเราเล่นดีกำลังฟอร์มดีๆอะไอเปลี่ยนออกแม่งก็หมดสภาพอะเป๊ปก็เป็นบ้างอะเป๊ปอะให้ลงเล่นสัก20 นาทีก็ไม่ได้ถ้ายิงไม่ได้อย่างเงี้ยเขาเปลี่ยนออกหน่อย20 นาทีอย่างเงี้ย25 นาทีแล้วบอกกูพักจนควยเปื่อยแล้วไอ้เวน
You know, they needed to catch City and do something out of the ordinary. Sat back and defending, didn't do that, did it? Not at all. And they're paying a price for that, even though they try to be a bit more positive now.
Yeah, it's better from Leicester, but too little, too late, some would argue. Harry Souttar on the ball for the Foxes, floats it out to Castagna on the right-hand side, who'll an early ball looking to get Maddison in behind Merritt Laporte, but Laporte can comfortably intervene. Rodri now, who maybe one of the candidates to come off for Manchester City if there's a like-for-like change with Calvin Phillips in the middle of the park. He's in possession again, the Spaniard. Switches it across to the left. City yet to get into gear at the start of the second period. Bernardo Silva. Leicester back in defensive shell. Silva can just pirouette and do a full 180 on the halfway line, not once but twice without any real attention from a visiting player. Laporte back into Bernardo Silva it goes.
3 ลูกแล้วผมว่าจริงได้สักกี่ลูกเนี่ย
For the time being, Rodri inside the centre circle, almost at a walking pace at this moment in time. Alvarez gets involved, tries to inject a bit of energy into proceedings. Laporte now down the left-hand side, goes back into Bernardo Silva once more. Switch the ball out to the right-hand flank where there is a bit of space for Kyle Walker. Closed down by Luke Thomas and has to go backwards once again. But yeah, City, they're just content, aren't they, to retain possession. There's no need for them to push and try and score 4th, 5th, 6th goal. There's nothing really for them to prove. They're just happy to keep the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Rodri now is going to go off. No need for him to be on. He's doing his usual strong arm in the middle, and it's been enough, hasn't it? He's been dominating that midfield area. I think what you see from Leicester is very ordinary, really. But without the ball, they try and get back into a certain shape. But in doing that, they're not marking anybody. You know, somehow you need a hybrid between what a Bielsa team used to do, mark everybody up, to make sure that there's always pressure on the man on the ball, you know, and that nobody gets away, but also getting back as well. You know, when I just noticed they go back in position, but all of a sudden then Bernardo's in the middle with acres of space. You saw him do 2 pirouettes, and then you know, and nobody's marking him, and they're leaving too many good players lots of time on the ball to do what they want. Well, another ball into the middle there, but Julian Alvarez has not got the same barnstorming threat in the middle there from that ball in, and nothing comes of it. So it might be City light in a way now, but I still fancy they'll have too many guns for Leicester.
Yeah, you'd imagine there's still a couple of goals out there for Manchester City if they want it, and certainly the likes of Alvarez will be hungry to get their names on the score sheet as they win themselves a throw-in midway inside their own half, despite Akanji protesting otherwise. 8 minutes into this second half, Manchester City leading Leicester City by 3 goals to nil as it stands. Remember, they'll be moving to within 3 points of Arsenal at the top of the standings. The Gunners in action tomorrow against West Ham. How much you can hear on this service for Leicester. They're going to be remaining second bottom of the table, 2 points adrift of safety, and that is a gap between themselves and the getting out of the bottom 3 that could be extended depending how other results go over the course of the weekend. Third from bottom, Nottingham Forest will face Manchester United tomorrow as Ederson has the ball for City. He's barely touched it really in the match so far. The home side's number 1 as he gets it again inside his own 6-yard area from Ruben Diaz before effortlessly stroking it out to Laporte on the left-hand side. He was pulled back by Maddison. It'll be a free kick to Manchester City, and probably do with either City up in the ante and trying to push for a few more goals, or maybe somehow Leicester getting a goal back just to lift the game into life.
Yeah, well, the only thing about if Leicester try and go for something, and I think the ship sailed already, is that they're worried about the goal difference. So they've been trying to keep it tight, hence he's still got 3 at the back. You know, so they don't want to get pummeled, lose by 5 or 6 and end up level on points with, say, Leeds United and end up going down on goal difference. It could happen. But I just don't, just the whole thing didn't work. I think if they looked at it again, and clearly with the benefit of hindsight, first 10 or 15 minutes, he might have just said, let's go for it. Let's try and nick a goal. Then we can sit back and try and defend it if we don't get it. But at least we'd have given it a go. But he's not giving his team any kind of chances. Ooh, volley from Grealish there. He catches it quite nice, but it's a hard thing to do from a corner kick, that get it on target. Look at the spaces in though.
It's the old school beckon to skulls, although referencing Manchester United might not be the way to go with Manchester City. But Mahrez to Grealish, the 2023 incarnation. Very difficult skill for Grealish, catching it almost at chest height, and he slices it over the top of the crossbar. Would have been an absolutely spectacular goal had he been able to find the target. And he's been in fantastic form, hasn't he, for City over recent months? Really made him the first names on the team sheet in the big games for City. He and Riyad Mahrez seem to be the preferred 2 in the wide areas in the final third, more often than not for Pep Guardiola. Phil Foden, who would be one of those options, currently out injured after having surgery on his appendix.
I mean, he'd had he played well, and I think Player of the Month this season. And then when I was watching, looking forward to seeing him, he actually played really poorly, and I think he's still a young fella, and you sort of forget that. Because Grealish is a sort of more seasoned character now. He's been a while. You know, he'd been Aston Villa captain, hadn't he, for a while and all that, been down and gone up. He's seen a little bit more. I didn't think he played that well in his first season, but he's certainly coming good now. Look at him there. He's got taken down in back play there by Wout Fast, just coming and leaning on him. He's good at winning those free kicks. But they shell out a fortune for a player, and then they're patient. He's the right age, and then he's hit form. The same with Gundogan did the same thing. Didn't play particularly well for years. Silva did the same thing, Bernardo Silva. They can be patient, but they've bought good players. They're just waiting for the right time for them, and each time seems to have come.
Yeah, and City are in a position where they can afford to do that because they already have, world-class players all over the pitch to compensate if a player needs bedding in time. The bonus for them this season is Erling Haaland hasn't needed any bedding in time. He's slotted straight in and is scoring goals at a record-breaking rate.
I mean, it's also important, Tom, to know when players have gone over the top. I thought it was superb business to lose Raheem Sterling when they did. No, I'm not saying he's a busted flush, but I think he was on a slippery slope, and as maybe they found at Chelsea this season, although he goes out with lots of intent and he's still a good player, he's not quite what he was.
The free kick worked short by City. De Bruyne to Mahrez, who tries to tee up Laporte on the right-hand side of the penalty area. Laporte will have to come out the box now to find Bernardo Silva. He'll lift another dangerous-looking ball towards the far post, but that one had just a little bit too much legs on it, and it'll go behind for a goal kick. 58 minutes on the clock. Manchester City 3, Leicester City 0. Manchester City very comfortable in this game. They've been able to take off the likes of Erling Haaland and Rodri to wrap them up in cotton wool. John Stones as well, ahead of that Champions League game with Bayern Munich in Germany this midweek. It's turning into a real purple patch for City. If they win this, will be their 10th victory in a row, and for all intents and purposes 3-0 up. We do fully expect them to go on and claim the 3 points. Leicester are battling a little bit more, trying to push higher up the pitch when they can, but you, John, I feel that's more because City may have just taken their foot off the gas slightly rather than anything. Leicester are doing better as Tielemans inexplicably gives the ball away inside his own defensive third.
Yeah, Leicester aren't playing that much better, are they? And Keenan Hall there just having a go at the referee, Dewsbury Hall. No real need for that. He just took his eye off it. Man City have sort of down tools, but just sort of rolling through it, going through the motions, aren't they? Leicester can't seem to do anything anyway. It wouldn't surprise me if we end up at 3-0, but equally, Man City might walk another couple in, we just don't know. And they're going to make another change now, and it's clear, isn't it? Guardiola feels super confident that they've got this game in the bag, and so, he's going to rest one of his most important players, I fancy.
I think that's Cole Palmer who's going to come on, so you'd imagine it'd be Grealish or Mahrez to go off as De Bruyne whips a dangerous ball towards the far post, aimed at Aymeric Laporte. Wilfred Ndidi got an important touch on it. I don't think it hit Laporte after that. Yeah, straight off Ndidi, so it'll be a corner to Manchester City. De Bruyne, I suppose, is another candidate that could be replaced. City are not going to make that change just yet. Grealish works the corner short with De Bruyne, pulls it to the edge of the area. Bernardo Silva, he'll tee up the effort towards goal for Mahrez. Curling effort, brilliant striking. That draws a really good save high to his right hand side for Daniel Everson.
That's sumptuous football, isn't it? Great corner kick routine, brilliant shot, brilliant save. Everson diving full stretch to
ครับเพื่อนๆ60 นาทีแล้วนะครับยัง 3-0 เหมือนเดิม
dropping below the crossbar. The fans behind the goal celebrating. That's how well that was hit.
De Bruyne takes the resulting corner, drifts it towards Mahrez again, this time on the volley. City trying that routine once more from a set piece, but Mahrez under pressure was never really set and sends it over the top of the crossbar. We've ticked beyond the hour mark.
โอ้ยัดเข้มาเลสยิง
going to see that change now. Kevin De Bruyne is the man who's going to be replaced, so another big name City player being wrapped up
โอ้โหไม่ได้ได้ไงวะ
with the midweek game in mind, and another chance for Cole Palmer to come on and impress. He's got the best part of half an hour to add to what has been a fledgling start to his City career.
Yeah, exactly that, and what a time to come on. I would quite fancy coming on 3-0 up with this City team. You think, right, okay, De Bruyne off, he's had a good run out, a good hour, and Palmer comes on. Oh, and Tielemans, the skipper, now has come off for Leicester, who I've got to say I was so disappointed with him.
ครับเควินเดอะบอยออกแล้ว
Come on for him, but it's going to be a double change, and Dewsbury Hall goes off as well as Dennis Pratt comes on. I think Dewsbury Hall at least has worked hard.
Yeah, I feel sorry for him. He's not been at his best on the ball, but he's had to work so hard off it. You can understand that. He's clearly fighting, trying to get Leicester going. I'm sure you could fully say the same about Tielemans based on what we saw for his hour on the field. But Mendy and Dennis Pratt come on slightly differently to Cole Palmer coming on for City. I'm not sure if these Leicester fans will be too infused about entering the fray. 3-0 down and still
ซิตี้ยิง3-0มันจบเลยอ่ะพี่เพื่อน
fresh legs in the middle of the park, and for the likes of Mendy and Pratt, an opportunity to stake their claim to start in the games to come for Leicester, and they are big games for Leicester. The next 3 in the Premier League will be against Wolves, Leeds and Everton, so this match may be going against them, but they're going to have to dust it off quickly, the Foxes, because those are huge matches coming up.
Yeah, they sure are, but the thing is, you get sort of knocked off your perch, don't you, when you've had a game where you've not lifted a leg. I mean, maybe they just draw a line under it, and then he's got to work out who his best players are, who cares, you know, and what sort of shape that they're going to be in. He might have a preferred shape, but maybe this Leicester squad doesn't have the players he likes. You know, he's a good manager, Dean Smith, and I think he did a good job when he took Villa up and all that. But I just don't know. More difficult with a team that's lost momentum.
Yeah, he was sacked by Norwich earlier this season. The criticism at Carrow Road was he didn't really have a particular style of play. He kept chopping and changing things, and there was no real philosophy. So didn't really have time to stamp his philosophy on this Leicester side. But need to find a formula and a winning formula quickly if the Foxes are to try and get themselves out of the sticky situation they're currently in. Calvin Phillips has the ball for City inside the centre circle, floats a tantalising ball over the top, looking for the run of Kyle Walker. It was well watched though by Luke Thomas, who can just guide the header back to his goalkeeper Everson. Leicester will be relieved at least that there's been no further damage in terms of added to the scoreline since the half-time break. Everson balls the ball out to Harry Souttar, who returns it to his goalkeeper. He takes a bit of a chance there with Julian Alvarez sniffing around, but Everson does clear up towards the halfway line, where again it doesn't stick with Iheanacho, who's come on to replace Jamie Vardy, and it's the same result really for him. He can't get a look in the game.
No, not at all. You know, it's difficult. They're living off scraps, aren't they? Also, there's a reluctance really for them to put hard work in. They've got big games coming up, and it's like they feel, oh, if this game is gone, well, why try? You know, why burn your batteries on something that's gone? But they've got to just keep on going and try and keep honest, don't they? But every time you look up, City, you've got the ball and they're running towards the Leicester goal, and here they go again.
There's Ruben Diaz driving through the middle of Leicester's defence, and he's continued his run forward. Riyad Mahrez is in possession, twisting, turning, gives it to Calvin Phillips, who works it out to Kyle Walker on the right-hand side. Oh, good run from Mahrez, spotted by Walker into the penalty area. But that is one for the collector's item. Riyad Mahrez, miscontrol under no real pressure, and you do not see that very often.
No, he'd been pretty good today, hadn't he? And showed some brilliant control, particularly first half. Ball's pinged him 50 yards and he just kills it stone dead. But they're an easier ball, and he must have been thinking about what he was going to do at that point. Took his eye off the prize. On the bench today, Tete not getting a look in. I thought he played quite well when I've seen him this season. Brendan Rodgers liked him and played him in their 4-3-3, and of course there's no Harvey Barnes. I think maybe 4-3-3 still is the way forward for them. You know, a bit late in the season to completely scull more normal tactics. I just thought probably they were playing in the right way, just weren't getting the right results. Crystal Palace found that, didn't they? Went through a whole run of games, couldn't get a shot on target, and all of a sudden they're scoring for fun. They're a 4-3-3 team with good players. I think Leicester, you know, very much like that, in that mould, you know, very dynamic team with good attacking players, but they certainly haven't played like that today.
Yeah, and at least a 4-3-3 means there's more support to the central striker, because Vardy, Daka and Iheanacho, whichever one of that three starts up front, I'm not completely convinced that they have it in them to lead the line for Leicester. They need the support which would come from a Tete in the side or a Barnes when he's fit. Of course, James Maddison provides that support from the central areas as Jack Grealish for Manchester City takes on Timothy.
เอาเว้ยเพื่อนๆพี่ๆครับ
into Bernardo
65 นาทีผ่านไปซิตี้ก็ยังยิงไม่ได้
Laporte down the left-hand side. The City defenders venturing forward more and more often in this game. Now with Akanji across to Walker on the right-hand side. Leicester looking a little bit tired and weary as they look to close down City, who move it from one way to the next, keeping that pressure on without really lifting the intensity too much at the moment. There is a foul in the middle of the park. Referee plays an advantage. Phillips works it out to Walker right hand side. He's into the penalty area. Low cross blocked behind by Luke Thomas. Will be a Manchester City corner.
Yeah, again, Grealish getting tangled up with
ซิตี้ยิง 3-0 แล้วหมดลมแล้วพี่ พูดตามตรงเลย
lingering look at that, but it will be corner kick. There's no